Bob Self, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
It's really an honor to have you here today. I grew up in Jacksonville, and I grew up reading the Florida Times-Union every single morning with my dad, and your name is one that I've seen for my whole life. So really, it's an honor and a pleasure. No, I don't mean it that way, but you are so esteemed.
Local celebrity.
You are. You're a local celeb. You're an incredible photojournalist, and it's really an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you.
So you've been, like you said, you've been with the Florida Times-Union for decades now. How long have you been with them?
August this month makes 34 years.
Holy mackerel. Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
So what changes have you experienced as a photojournalist through the years?
Technology has been the biggest thing. I mean, I started out in the business, film and chemicals and darkroom printing, and we'd sit down at a typewriter afterwards and peck out our captions on a sheet of paper, cut it off, scotch tape it to the back of the print, and hand it off to the layout people. Now it's shoot digital and pop the disc into the computer or download the photos, put on a caption, and use a wireless to transmit the photos back to the server. And that can happen in minutes if you need to. So yeah, the technology's constantly changed. But good photojournalism really hasn't.
And what makes good photojournalism?
That's a tough question, but I think in the simplest terms, it's good, relatively quick read visuals that tell a story, that draw a reader in to tell a story. I mean, I think it has to have a nice combination of things that generate an emotion or capture an emotion that other people can relate to. And it's more than just taking a picture to show what somebody looks like.
Definitely. And you absolutely capture so many emotions, a realm of emotions in your photos in Jacksonville, A Tale of My City. Tell us a little bit about the photo series you did in La Villa a few years ago.
Well, it came after a project that I had done a few years prior at American Beach, where I'd spent several summers doing a documentary project, just personal work. And I've always loved long-term projects where you just keep revisiting the same people or the same area again and again and again, because that's the only way you ever get to know it. And that's the only way anybody gets to know you and trust you enough to let you into their lives. And myself, and I believe it was Bob Mack, who was one of the photographers at the time, we were coming home from a football game, and we were just talking, and he said, you really ought to do something on La Villa because, they're about to start cleaning that area out. And it had never crossed my mind, and it's like, duh, yeah, I should do that. And so for the next 17 months, I'd, go park close by, and it's only a few blocks from the newspaper building. So if I had a slow day, I'd go walk the streets for a few hours. Or if I had a really slow day, I'd spend all day just walking around and with the cameras and talking to people and shooting and making observations. And slowly, steadily, the regulars that were still in the neighborhood kind of got a feel for who I was and had a certain level of trust with me being there and gave me access to things that otherwise, I would never have had any reason to be there and would never have been invited to be a part of.
Right. The trust aspect of that series seems crucial because in a lot of these photos, you are inside of people's homes and folks look pretty vulnerable in some of these photos. What was that like?
That's kind of what I've done my whole career. Whether I've got a very limited amount of time with somebody or I've got an extended period of time, you have to let people know that you respect them as a person, and they've got to figure that out really quick. And if you come off as being exploitive in any way, they know it. They know it right away. And I learned that lesson early on. And I've also always taken the approach that none of my subjects owe me anything. They are sharing a part of their life that they don't have any obligation to share with me. And I've always taken that approach to people. I just, I'm grateful for the time that they give me, the things in their life that they're willing to share with me. And I've been doing it for 34 years at the paper and for a number of years before that. I don't take it for granted. I don't feel like anybody owes me anything when I'm out on the street.
Right. What's your relationship like with the library?
It's been really good.
Good.
It's because I do other things with the library other than this show. I don't know if you're familiar with up in the Florida collection, the Lloyd Sandgren photography collection is I had a hand in that getting here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that collection.
Lloyd was a commercial photographer, came to Jacksonville in the 40s as a Navy photographer at Mayport, and stuck around after the war. And with the exception of like 1 year in 1946 where he was working for the Department of Commerce out of Tallahassee, he spent his whole career as a professional photographer in Jacksonville, bouncing around between a series of different downtown studio spaces, often where he lived and worked at the same time. I met him as a chance encounter on the street one day, right off Hemming Plaza, as I was loading up after an assignment. And it was just a bizarre encounter where a little old guy with a big pot belly and red suspenders and a big white beard comes over and starts asking me questions about my equipment. And I always try to be polite to everybody, and so I answer his questions. And then at some point he goes, "Well, I'm a photographer." And you kind of, you don't want to roll your eyes, but it's like, yeah, everybody's a photographer. That's nice. And he had this 3-ring binder with him. And he goes, "Do you want to look at some of my pictures?" And I was fully expecting to see, bad sunset and flower photos.
Right.
And open it up, and it's black and white prints from large format negatives of skyline views from the 50s, commercial product shots, really high quality, really nice stuff. And at that point, it's like, oh my gosh, you are a photographer. And so I started asking him all the questions at that point, thinking it would just be a great story for the paper, and it was. And then we just became friends, and we stayed friends until he passed. And after he passed, I worked with his daughter, and I asked her to let me salvage all of his collection from his little one-bedroom apartment in Springfield and keep it safe.
That's incredible. And now it's housed here in the main library in our Florida collection, which is on the 4th floor in special collections. We're really lucky to have it. Yeah.
What year was that when you met him? Do you remember?
Gosh, it's been a while. He's been gone for about 10 years now. So I knew him for quite a while. Yeah, I should know that off the top of my head, but a lot of years have gone by since then.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool story. Because I've seen those pictures on our digital collection on our website, and they're incredible to see.
Well, Lloyd always thought about him as just kind of his notebooks of just a record of what he shot. He just liked to show his stuff. And as soon as I saw it, it's like, this is an amazing collection that documented Jacksonville at probably one of the most dynamic periods in its history. The 40s and the 50s, right after the war, and downtown was booming, and there were just tons of people and businesses all downtown. And he had kind of a mischievous eye, and he shot things that he liked. I mean, he was a guy's guy. He liked cars. He liked the ladies. He liked the macho stuff. And, there's bathing beauties and bodybuilders on Jacksonville Beach. Professional wrestling from the 60s in the old Coliseum. Just fun stuff. It's hard not to like it.
So, Bob, we asked this question at the end of all of our interviews. We'd love to know, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I was always a science nerd.
Interesting.
I always loved the sciences. I always loved critters. I was not one of the cool kids. In high school, everybody else was partying and going out. I was spending my time swimming down in Sebastian Inlet collecting tropical fish for saltwater aquariums.
Wow.
And I went off to college thinking I was going to become a veterinarian. And after struggling through the core biology sequence with 750 other pre-science majors and bombing the core chemistry, I figured, probably not going to make it to vet school. But I was still sure I was going to be in the sciences. And 2 years into taking all these different biological science courses, I started taking some pictures for the yearbook at University of Florida, and then started doing some lab work for the Department of Informational Services, and they started giving me assignments. Then I started doing work for the alligator, and it's like, I kind of like this. And so I switched majors, ended up being a fine arts major, working in photojournalism the whole time I was in school.
Well, we are very lucky that you did not become Bob Self, the veterinarian, although I'm pretty sure you would have been great at that too. But your photos are stunning, and we really appreciate your time coming on our podcast today and sharing your work here in the Makerspace Gallery. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.